Hey everybody, it's Bonsai Allen. And I got 3 new babies. 2 of the same kind and 1 of a different kind. At the convention. Florida State Convention is on Memorial Day weekend. So I went down there. Or up there, actually. If you want to be geographically correct. And I got 2 different types of trees that I've been thinking about getting. So I'm happy. So So I have, these are a dwarf podocarpus, and this is a trident maple. So let's put the trident maple aside for now. You hear the frogs? We finally got some rain. The rainy season appears as though it has finally appeared, and the frogs are so happy. Or maybe, should I say it? They're not actually happy, they're horny. Because that peeping is like, I'm over here, come and get me. And so I will have tadpoles. I grow a lot of water lilies. And I will have tadpoles in every water lily container. Anyway, where were we? Oh yeah, dwarf podocarpus. So last weekend I went to another bonsai event. And they had some much, much larger ones of these. Tall, perhaps 2 feet or more. And I said I'd want to buy one, and they said, oh, those aren't for sale. And so I really wasn't very happy with that, because that's just bad business. If stuff isn't for sale, cordon it off with some string or put them aside where people don't see them. But anyway, long story short, I did not buy them from there. So the guy that I bought these from is, once again, even further north, although I don't think that really matters with the podocarpus. Man, them frogs is going crazy. And we're talking about a week of afternoon thunderstorms. That's typically what happens in Florida. We have a dry season from November to May. And typically we get about 2 inches of rain a month. However, it can be much drier than that, and it has been. So April, we got almost nothing, at least here at my house. And most of the state of Florida, they were in, if you look at the drought map for Florida, at the end of, like a week ago, a huge amount of Florida was in exceptional drought, which is pretty dry. I believe there's only 2 more extreme drought, and I forget what the worst one is. But it was bad. It was dry. It's incredibly dry. So I've totally lost my train of thought. So let's just start over. Well, I'm not going to start the video over. Just going to start my train of thought over. So these podocarpus grow around here and all through the whole state of Florida. You can see podocarpus that are many, many years old that are absolutely gigantic. And there are a number of different forms. This, to the best of my knowledge, is by far the smallest leaf. And I've got at least 2 other forms. I've got another one that's a pretty dwarf tree, but it's not as small as these leaves. And then I've got the regular variety. So I will show you those. I'm going to go grab some cuttings off of those trees, and I'll show you the difference. Alright, I just decided to bring a seedling podocarpus of the large leaf variety. So this is the large leaf variety. As you can see, the leaves are 4 or 5 times longer. This is probably the most popular landscape tree. And then there's another one, and I decided not to take a cutting. I just decided we're just going to pan over there. I'm going to bring this little guy with me, and we're going to pan over to the big guy. This is a huge tree that is going to make an excellent bonsai. But so even this one here, which is a dwarf form, the big guy right here, its leaves are still not as small as this one. This is the one I just got. Of course, this guy was considerably less money than the big monster. And the big monster one was just a landscape tree that I bought out of a landscape nursery and then root pruned it. I'll leave you the video of that. And it struggled for a while because I think I pruned off too much of the roots without pruning off enough of the top. And you can see there's some brown in there, but it has really started to grow nicely. You can also see the new tips. So those are the 3 different types of podocarpus that I have. And I don't know if you can see, but if we look at the trunks on these guys, you see how they're already gray? So that is old trunks. Those are old trunks. And they actually have some fairly interesting nabari, both of them. They haven't really been grown with nabari in mind. The guy has like hundreds of these, so you can't really fault him for not paying attention to every detail. But this guy here has a pretty decent root spread. And then this one here is just a seedling. And it's just so young. And you can see, we have a tremendous amount of green growth here. And it's turning a little brown here. But to get that gray, these are much older trees. So they grow much more slowly. So that's the catch, is the dwarf leaves make fantastic bonsai, but they grow so much more slowly. So, once again, if we pan out and we look at the seedling, this is about a 2-year-old seedling, and I guess these guys here could be anywhere from 5 years or more. And this one's bigger, taller, even it has almost as thick a trunk. But I'm really looking forward to growing these little dwarf guys because I love my mames. And, I talked to the guy. Podocarpus roots fairly simply from cuttings. So the first thing to do is I see they have no fertilizer that I can see. So I'm going to give them a real good fertilization and then let them take off. And then start to take some cuttings. Now, podocarpus are also dioecious plants, so they have separate male and female. The male produce the pollen, and the female produce the seed. And the guy was telling me, because we found one with a little immature seed, because the seed matures more like July, August, even September. I've collected podocarpus seed. In fact, this guy here, I collected those seed in September. He said if you plant the seed from this little dwarf guy, it'll revert back to the normal podocarpus. So these are what is called a sport. They're kind of like a mutation. So somebody was growing a big-leafed one, and they saw this little amount of growth that had these much smaller leaves. So they said, I'm going to take a cutting of that and see if it comes true, and it did. So now we have this dwarf form, but you can't plant the seed because the seed reverts back to regular. And that's not that big of a deal because they do root from cuttings. So I was happy to get these guys. I was very unhappy with the other nursery when they said that they're not for sale. Put some tape around them or something, I don't know. Oh, by the way, these two here, they're not for sale either. Especially since nothing that I have is for sale. Okay, the next one is another one that I'm very excited to try. And that is, can we get him in the view? A trident maple. And I'm not sure how old this guy is. And I'm not sure that we really need to go all the way to the top, but it's growing like crazy. The guy told me that it was dormant up to right here. Got a pretty major trunk chop. So all this growth has emerged since this spring. And trident maples are ones that really grow much better further north. They need colder winters. And they also don't like the incredible heat of the summer. But the heat of the summer, when it comes to getting northern trees to grow south, is one problem, but by far the biggest problem is the lack of dormancy in the winter. A tree that is adapted to wintertime dormancy must go through that dormancy. It's an integral part of their life cycle. It's not like, well, if it doesn't go dormant, it'll be fine. No, that's wrong. If it doesn't go dormant, they, for all intents and purposes, grow themselves to death. So dormancy is essential. So this is why in my collection I have no spruce or beech or birch or hemlock or anything that you grow up north. The typical, Shimpaku junipers. I can grow some junipers, but not Shimpaku. I have no pines, mainly because I just don't really want to focus on growing pines. They're a whole nother world with pinching the needles and etc., etc. The Japanese black pine will grow this far south, but I have plenty of other stuff to keep me busy. So the reason I got this trident is, number one, it was also fairly inexpensive. And it's already in a little plastic bonsai tray. And it's already got some roots that are, you can see some nice white roots right there. And I think what happened was it tilted in the bag in my car as I was driving home. So part of the reason I decided to try this guy was these are the best chance I think I have of a northern maple growing this far south. And another thing I have is hornbeams. I have a very large hornbeam, that's my stock plant, and I've taken air layers, and I've had excellent success with those air layers continuing to grow on, and they're really thriving. They're doing quite well. They are in almost 100% shade, and I keep them very, very moist. Mother Nature did that last night, so I probably won't even need to water today. Yeah. Not that I don't like to water, but after a month and a half of every single day with no respite at all, it's like, oh, come on. Please. Praying to the gods of thunder. It looks like they've been getting ready. The rainy season in Florida kind of like just clicks on with a switch. It's dry, 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 and then all of a sudden, boom, it starts to rain. And even though I've lived here almost 50 years, that still just amazes me how the conditions can change so rapidly that you, boom, then you're in the rainy season. And that usually happens right around the 1st of May, 1st of June, which is what? About a week from now, so typically the end of May. So this guy, and I know I'm rambling a little bit, but that's okay. I'm prone to rambling. I'm going to give this guy the same conditions that I'm giving the hornbeams. And I may actually, he's wired into the pot, I may actually just see what kind of roots this thing has and put it in a much, much larger pot. And another thing, so, a lot of shade all day long, 365, very moist soil. And I'm thinking very seriously, I know this is insane, but putting ice cubes on top of the soil from like December 1st to January 31st to force it to pretend that it's winter. And I'll keep you updated on that once that happens. We got a few more months to go for that. And another thing about this guy is it's a clean slate. I've never had one before. So I don't know if they root from cuttings. I don't know how easy they are to air layer. I know they can make a really nice buttress trunk fairly quickly. This guy here is pretty thin, pretty feminine. And of course, this will be my stock plant that I will attempt to propagate. Man, the frogs. Just listen to them. I got frogs to the left of me, frogs to the right, and I'm stuck in the middle with you. Can you hear it? Can you hear the stereophonic effect? Anyway, so there we go. I'm so super excited. So I'm going to try to take some cuttings off of this long growth. I will probably wait until I get what's called half hardwood. And I've spoken about half hardwood before. And that basically means that you've got the growing tips, which are really green, green, green. And then you've got the hardwood, which on a Trident maple is kind of a gray. And then there's a point in between where it's pretty hard to see. So even these long shoots that are about a foot, I think this one is just beginning to harden off. And that's where you take the cutting. For most plants, that's the best place to take the cuttings, is after the wood is not just so bright green, but before it hardens completely. That half hard wood is the best. Sorry, is the best place to take some cuttings. So there we go. I'm excited. And the podocarpus are supremely cold tolerant, especially in the ground. In landscapes, there's no reason to do anything with a podocarpus as far as cold. These guys will probably get, if it gets really, really bad, which the trend for where I live is that we're not getting any freezes at all. Past 4 or 5 years, it hasn't got down to 32 degrees Fahrenheit or 0 Celsius, if you're a Celsius person, which is the entire rest of the world. So there'll be really no need to do any kind of cold protection on the podocarpus. They're just fine, just as they are. And they may also get a little bit bigger pots and a nice heavy fertilization, so that they also produce more cuttings possibilities. And can we see on these guys half hard wood? It's pretty hard. Maybe like right here. Can we zoom in here? Let's try to zoom in. Get everybody else out of the way. And maybe actually do it like this, and then like this. Oops! Tighten up the tripod. And then zoom in. Is that as zoomy as it gets? I guess it is. So right here, you can see this is very green, and then the old wood is there, and right in that little section, right there, it's turning into wood. There's a little bit of brown, so that's where I take the cuttings. And I picked the brain about the guy that grows these, picked his brain. And he just basically said, it's a numbers game. Just take a bunch of cuttings, stick them in there. The ones that live, live, and the ones that don't, don't. That was his advice on how to take cuttings. Of course, you know, he's like me. He has hundreds of them. He sort of got enamored with these little guys and started growing them like crazy. So that's what he told me. It's like nothing about half hardwood or hardwood or how long the cutting should be or do you use rooting hormone. That's all he said. It's a numbers game. Just jam a whole bunch of them into a pot. And the ones that live, live, and the ones that don't, don't. So, wow, how profound, eh? So anyway. Oops. Let's unzoom. So there we go. And I know I've probably gone in numerous different directions on this video, but at least I didn't go down. Maybe sideways a couple times. So there you go. Podocarpus, dwarf podocarpus, and my very, very first, after 40 years of growing bonsai, trident maple. So I will keep you abreast of what's going on with these guys. I think I may actually today, right now, put these podocarpus into bigger pots. I may do bulb pans. This guy's in a 1 gallon, so not sure. I have a 2 gallon just sitting here. That would give it a whole lot more room. But of course I do want to end up with these as bonsai. So in a perfect world, you know, you want your soil to be thinner this way, but wider out like that, like a bulb pan. I think this old 10-inch bulb pan is overkill for that guy. But anyway, they're definitely going to go into bigger pots and pump them up. And then the trident too. And I will keep you posted on their progress. And taking cuttings and all the rest of that good stuff that I do with my newly acquired trees. So thank you so much for watching.